I always thought that when my children grew up, I could rest my heart a little. You spend your youth worrying about scraped knees, broken bones, and fevers, but no one warns you that grown children can break your heart in quieter, sharper ways. My name is Alma Wabanang, and I'm 82 years old now. The house I live in feels too big for one person, yet too full of memories to ever feel empty. It was a Saturday morning when I first sensed something had changed between Marissa and Evan. They'd been married for nearly 12 years by then, college sweethearts, the kind of couple people looked at and said, "Now that's true love." I used to believe that too. Evan was kind, patient, and always called me Mom. I'd watch him pull out chairs for Marissa at dinner, rub her back when she was stressed, and I'd whisper to myself, "Thank God my daughter is loved." But love, I learned, isn't always loud when it leaves. Sometimes it slips out quietly, one misunderstanding at a time. That morning, I was baking my cinnamon bread, the kind Marissa used to beg for when she was a little girl. The kitchen smelled like home, and for a moment, everything felt right. Then I heard it, the sharp edge of her voice from the living room. "You're never here, Evan. You think money fixes everything?" she snapped. I froze, flour on my hands, afraid even to breathe. Evan said something softer, something I couldn't quite catch, and then came the sound of a door closing. Not slamming, just closing. That kind of quiet is worse, because it's full of all the words they didn't say. I didn't mean to listen, but you can't unhear pain in your child's voice. I wanted to go out there, wrap my arms around her, tell her it would be all right. But I stayed where I was, heart aching, because sometimes mothers make things worse just by showing up at the wrong moment. Later that day, Marissa came into the kitchen, face flushed, eyes red. "He's going to his mother's for the weekend," she muttered. I handed her a cup of tea, the kind she always liked, chamomile with a touch of honey, but she barely touched it. "He says he needs space," she said with a bitter laugh. "Space from me." I wanted to say, "You both just need to talk." But instead I asked, "What happened, sweetheart?" She looked at me with those tired eyes I barely recognized anymore. "You wouldn't understand, Mom. Things aren't like they were in your day." That stung, though I didn't show it. I'd been married 50 years before my husband passed, and we had our storms too. Sometimes more thunder than sunshine. But I didn't say that. I just nodded, pretending I understood. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the old house. I thought of Marissa at 5 years old, sneaking into my bed after a nightmare, her tiny fingers clutching mine. She always trusted me to make the monsters go away. And I wondered, when do children stop believing their mothers can fix things? The next day I drove to Evan's mother's house. I told myself it was just to drop off a jar of my apple jam, but really I wanted to see him, to understand his side. When he opened the door, he looked so tired, like the weight of the world was pressing on his shoulders. "Oh, Mom, hi," he said, forcing a smile. He still called me that. It almost broke me. I asked him how he was, how Marissa was, how they were. He sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "She's not the same anymore, Alma. It's like I don't know who she is. She doesn't trust me. Everything I do, she twists into something bad." I wanted to defend my daughter, but I also saw the pain in his eyes. So instead I said gently, "Marriage changes people, Evan. Sometimes not for the worse, just differently. Maybe you both forgot how to listen." He smiled sadly. "You always say the right thing, Mom. Maybe you should tell her that. That was my mistake, the first one at least, because I did." That night, when Marissa came over for dinner, I told her what Evan had said, hoping foolishly it would help. I said, "He still cares for you, honey. He just feels unheard. Maybe if you reached out." Her face hardened instantly. "You talked to him?" I hesitated, just to see if he was all right. I thought maybe. "You thought?" Her voice cracked, sharp as glass. You had no right, Mom. You always do this. You insert yourself like you know everything. The words hit harder than I expected. I felt my throat close, tears welling before I could stop them. I was only trying to help, I whispered. Well, don't, she snapped. You've done enough. She left before dinner was served, the door echoing with every ounce of her anger. The cinnamon bread sat untouched on the counter, its scent turning sour in the silence. That night I cried for the first time in years, not because of what she said, but because maybe, just maybe, she was right. Maybe I didn't know how to stop trying to fix things that weren't mine to fix. But how do you stop being a mother? How do you stop caring when it's your child's happiness on the line? The next morning, Evan called to say Marissa had gone to stay with a friend for a while. He sounded worried, lost, and that ache in my chest grew heavier. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chairs, one for Marissa, one for Evan. Both gone now, like ghosts of the laughter that once filled this house. And as I sipped my cold tea, I wondered, where's the line between helping and hurting? When does love turn into interference? It's a strange thing watching your child's love life crumble like paper in the rain, knowing you can't fix it, and worse, knowing you might have made it worse just by breathing too close. Marissa didn't speak to me for almost 3 weeks after that night. The house felt colder without her voice, and the days stretched long and colorless. I'd catch myself setting the table for 3, then stop halfway, the ache spreading slow and heavy. Every clink of silverware was a reminder of what used to be, family dinners, laughter echoing through the walls, Evan teasing me about my overcooked roast. It was all gone now, like someone had erased the sound of love from my home. I tried calling Marissa once, maybe twice. The first time she didn't pick up. The second time she answered but said nothing. I could hear her breathing on the other end, soft, trembling. I said, "Sweetheart, can we talk?" Her voice came sharp, tired. "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. Please just stop." Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone long after the call ended. I wanted to scream, but at my age, you learn that screaming doesn't solve much. So I sat there holding the phone like a broken heart and whispered into the silence, I only wanted to help. It was a few days later when Evan came by. He looked worse than before, eyes hollow, beard untrimmed, a man carrying guilt like a second skin. He stood on my porch, shifting from foot to foot like a child about to confess something. "Alma," he said softly, "I think Marissa told her friends I was cheating on her." The words hit me like cold water. "What? Evan, that can't be true." He shook his head. "It's what she believes now. She said you told her I said things about her, that I blamed her for everything." I felt my knees weaken, so I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself. "That's not what I said, Evan. You know that." He gave a weary smile, the kind that says, "I want to believe you, but I'm too tired to fight anymore." "I know, but she doesn't, and I think she's done." He turned to leave, but before he did, he looked back and said quietly, "You tried to help, Alma. I know you did. But sometimes help just looks like interference to the person drowning." Then he left, and those words stayed with me for months. You see, when you're old, people assume you've figured life out, that you're full of wisdom and calm. But the truth is, the older you get, the more you realize how little control you've ever had over anything. I spent my evenings sitting on the porch, staring at the maple tree Marissa and Evan planted the year they got married. Its leaves had begun to fall early that year, red and gold like they were bleeding. I'd pick one up sometimes and think, is this how love dies? Slowly, beautifully, and without anyone noticing until it's too late. Weeks turned into months, and the silence between us grew like ivy, crawling, twisting, suffocating everything it touched. Then one afternoon, Marissa showed up at my door. I almost didn't recognize her. Her face was pale, her hair unkempt, her eyes swollen from crying. She stood there trembling, clutching a small box of Evan's things. "Mom," she said flatly, "he moved out. It's over." I froze. "Oh, honey." I reached for her, but she stepped back. "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't pretend you didn't play a part in this." My breath caught. "Marissa, please, I never—" "You told him things. You told me to go talk to him when I wasn't ready. You made me believe he wanted to fix things, and he didn't. You—" She stopped herself, shaking her head, tears spilling freely now. "You don't understand boundaries, Mom. You ruined everything." Her words sliced through me like glass. I wanted to tell her that she was wrong, that all I did was love her too much, that I was only trying to keep her from falling apart. But the look on her face, cold, hollow, exhausted, told me that no explanation would matter. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean—" "Meaning doesn't matter anymore," she interrupted. "He's gone, and I'm done trying." Then she turned and walked away, leaving the box on the porch. The sound of her car fading down the street felt like a door closing on the rest of my life. That night, I sat in the kitchen, staring at the small box. Inside were pieces of a life, a broken watch, a tie clip, a photograph of them on their wedding day, her smile, his hand on her waist, all of it frozen in a moment they'd never get back. I traced her face with my finger, whispering, "You used to smile like that for me, too." Days later, the neighbors started whispering. I could feel their pity in the way they looked at me at church, how they lowered their voices when I passed. People always talk. "Poor Alma," they said. "She got in the middle of their marriage." It's strange, isn't it? You raise a child, feed them, clothe them, pray for them, and one day you become the villain in their story. Months later, when I saw Marissa again, she was colder still. She came only to drop off some papers. She didn't stay long, didn't make eye contact, but before she left, she turned and said, "Evan told everyone I was crazy. He said I imagined things. Do you know what that feels like, Mom? Being the joke in your own marriage?" I didn't answer, because I did know what that felt like, to love someone who stops believing in you. And that's when it hit me. Maybe this wasn't about helping or meddling. Maybe it was just about two broken hearts, each trying to find someone to blame, and I was the easiest target. I wish I could tell you I fought back, that I shouted or defended myself, but I didn't. I just watched her walk away again, the same way she did when she was 16 and thought I'd ruined her life for grounding her. Only this time, I knew she wouldn't come back in the morning to say sorry. As I closed the door behind her, I leaned my forehead against the wood and whispered, "When does love become too much?" I didn't see Marissa or Evan for nearly a year after that day. The seasons changed, the maple tree outside shed and grew again, and still no word from my daughter. I used to mark her birthday on the calendar with a little red heart. But that year, I didn't. I couldn't. The ache of silence had become a part of my bones, and I'd learned how to sit with it like an old friend. Sometimes at night, I'd find myself talking to her picture and the one on her wedding day. She looked so beautiful then, so full of life and hope. I'd whisper, "Where did you go, sweetheart? Where did we go wrong?" Then I'd fall asleep with the frame still on my lap, as if holding on to that moment could bring her back. Then one cold evening, the phone rang. I remember because I almost didn't answer. My hands were stiff from knitting, and my heart had long stopped expecting anything but silence. But something, maybe that quiet ache mothers never lose, made me pick up. It was Evan. His voice was low, hoarse, like he'd been crying. "Alma," he said, "I didn't know who else to call." My heart jumped. "Evan? What's wrong? Is Marissa all right?" He hesitated, then said, "She left, took her things and went to her sister's. She said she couldn't live in the same house anymore. I think it's my fault. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. What happened? He sighed, long and broken. Remember when you told her I came to you asking for advice? Well, she thought I came because I didn't love her anymore, that I was just using her out of guilt. But the truth is, I went to you because I was scared. I was losing her, Alma, and I thought you'd know how to fix it. I closed my eyes, tears stinging. Oh, Evan, you should have told her that. I tried, he said softly, but she wouldn't listen. She said I was just trying to make her doubt you. He paused. She even showed me that letter you wrote. I froze. Letter? Yes, the one where you told her she deserved better. She said it was proof that even you thought she should leave me. My throat tightened. That letter wasn't for her, Evan. It was for me. I wrote it months ago when I saw how unhappy she was. I never sent it. There was silence on the other end. Then very quietly he said, Then how did she get it? I had no answer. I remember sitting there, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear him. Somewhere in my house, my small, quiet house, I still had a stack of old letters tucked in a drawer. I wrote them when I couldn't sleep, when I needed to pour out what I couldn't say out loud. I must have misplaced one. Maybe she found it the last time she came by. Maybe she read words I never meant her to see. That night, after Evan hung up, I went to my desk and opened the drawer. The letters were still there. Yellowed paper, trembling handwriting, all my confessions laid bare. I searched for the one he mentioned, and when I found it, I knew instantly. The words stared back at me, heavy with regret. Maybe she deserves someone who sees her without the fog of old pain. Maybe love shouldn't be a rescue, but a choice freely made. I covered my mouth, my heart breaking. She must have thought I was telling her to leave him, when all I meant was that I wished she could find her own happiness again. For days after that, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept wondering, how many times had my words, spoken or written, done more harm than good? How many times had I mistaken love for guidance when what my daughter needed was silence? Weeks passed, and then one Sunday morning, I saw Marissa again at church. She was sitting alone in the back pew, head bowed, her hands trembling in her lap. I wanted to go to her, to touch her shoulder, but I stayed still. The sermon went on about forgiveness and pride, but I heard none of it. I was just staring at my daughter, trying to remember the last time she smiled at me. After the service, she stood up and started to leave, but our eyes met for just a second. There was something in her look, not anger this time, but exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying too much hurt for too long. Marissa, I called softly. She stopped but didn't turn. I walked closer, each step feeling like I was walking through years of unspoken words. I never meant to ruin anything, honey. I swear to you. Finally, she turned. Her voice was small, almost breaking. Then why did you write that letter, Mom? I swallowed hard. Because I was scared. I saw you losing yourself. I didn't want to lose you, too. She stared at me for a long moment, tears glistening in her eyes. You always think love means saving people, she said quietly. But sometimes, Mom, love means letting them figure it out themselves. She walked away after that, didn't look back, and I stood there in the cold morning air, clutching the old letter in my coat pocket, wishing I could go back and tear it up before it ever reached her hands. For months after, I prayed every night that she'd find peace, not for me, but for her, because the hardest part of being a mother isn't when they hate you, it's when they stop needing you. I guess I learned too late that silence can sometimes be the greatest kindness. But tell me this, have you ever tried to fix something out of love, only to realize you broke it even more? It was spring when she finally came back. I remember because the lilacs had just started blooming outside my window, their scent floating through the air like a memory that refused to fade. I was sitting in my rocking chair, as I always did, knitting a scarf I'd never finish. The house was too quiet, too still, the kind of silence that settles after years of waiting. Then a soft knock on the door. I almost thought I imagined it, but when I opened it, there she was, my Marissa. Her hair was shorter, her eyes tired, but she was still my little girl. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We just stood there, both holding our breath, unsure how to begin again. "Hi, Mom," she said finally, her voice trembling. My lips quivered before I could answer. "Oh, sweetheart, you came." She smiled weakly. "Yeah, I came." We sat at the kitchen table where I'd shared every meal with her growing up. Pancakes on Sundays, soup when she was sick, and long talks that used to last past midnight. But that day, the silence between us said more than any words ever could. "I heard about you and Evan," I said quietly. Her hands tightened around her coffee cup. "He left," she whispered. "Said he needed time to figure things out. I guess I pushed him too far." I wanted to reach across the table to hold her hands like I used to when she was little and scared of thunderstorms, but I didn't, not yet. "I'm sorry," I said, "for everything, for that letter, for meddling, for thinking I knew better." She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "No, Mom. It wasn't just you. I was angry, and I didn't want to hear anything that sounded like truth. I blamed you because it was easier than blaming myself." Her words cracked something open in me. All those nights I'd spent wondering if she hated me, and now, hearing this, it was like breathing for the first time in years. "I thought you'd never forgive me," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know if forgiveness is something that just happens," she said softly, "but I want to try. I think I understand now why you do what you do. You always want to fix what's broken. I guess that's where I get it from." We both laughed then, the kind of small, shaky laugh that comes when the pain's still there, but you've finally stopped running from it. Then, for the first time in years, she reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was steady. "I found another letter," she said after a moment. My heart skipped. "Another one?" She nodded. "It was in Evan's things. You wrote it to me but never sent it. You said, 'If my love ever hurts you, know it came from fear, not from doubt.'" Her voice broke. "That's when I realized you weren't trying to control me, Mom. You were trying to protect me the only way you knew how." Tears welled in my eyes. "I never wanted you to feel small, Marissa. I just didn't want you to fall apart the way I once did." "I know," she whispered. "And maybe I needed to fall apart a little, to understand that love isn't about saving or being saved." We sat there for a long time after that, the ticking clock the only sound between us. But it wasn't the silence of distance anymore. It was peace. Before she left that evening, she walked to the door, then turned back. "Mom?" "Yes, honey?" She smiled, that same small, sad smile that used to melt me when she was a child. "Thank you for always trying, even when it hurt." When she was gone, I looked around the house, the empty rooms, the fading photos, the stack of letters still tucked in that drawer. For the first time, I didn't feel alone, because sometimes love doesn't return the way you expect it to. Sometimes it comes back quieter, humbler, but truer than before. That night, I lit a candle near the window and whispered into the dark, "Let her be all right." And as the flame flickered, I thought, maybe that's what being a mother really is, learning to love, even through silence. Have you ever loved someone so much that even their absence felt like a heartbeat inside your chest? You know, when you get to my age, you start realizing that forgiveness isn't some grand act of sainthood. It's quieter than that. It's sitting alone in a room filled with ghosts and deciding not to hate them anymore. It's hearing your child's laughter in the distance and knowing that despite everything, they still carry a piece of you in their heart. After Marissa left that day, I sat by the window for hours, watching the sky turn from gold to gray. The world outside went on. Kids rode their bikes down the street, a dog barked at nothing, and the neighbor's wind chimes sang in the wind. Life, in all its stubbornness, refused to stop for my heartache. I thought about Evan, too, poor boy, caught between two women who both loved him in their own flawed ways. I never hated him, not really. Maybe he was just as lost as the rest of us. Maybe he loved Marissa so much that he couldn't see how to fix what was breaking. Weeks passed before she called again. Her voice was softer this time. "Mom," she said, "would you come over for dinner? Just us." I went, of course. When I stepped into her home, it felt different, calmer. The photos of Evan were still there, but now surrounded by candles and new memories. We ate quietly, talking about small things, recipes, the garden, the cat that wouldn't stop scratching the couch. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Later that night, as I was leaving, she hugged me tight. Not the polite kind of hug you give out of duty, but the kind that says I still need you. I held her close and whispered, "We'll be okay, sweetheart. We've already survived the worst part," the silence. Driving home under the streetlights, I realized something. Love doesn't always look like joy. Sometimes it looks like survival. Sometimes it's just showing up again after all the words have hurt and the tears have dried. When I got home, I opened that drawer one last time, the one where I'd hidden all those letters. Some I'd written to her, others to myself, one even to Evan, though I never sent it. I read them all slowly, letting the paper soak up my tears. Then I tied them with a ribbon and placed them in a small box labeled lessons. Not regrets, not mistakes, lessons. Because that's what the years had taught me. That kindness, even when misunderstood, still matters. That meddling, when born from love, might wound, but it also comes from the same place as protection. And that sometimes the best way to help someone is to stand back and let life teach them what your words could not. A few months later, Marissa called again. She'd started seeing a counselor, focusing on her own healing. "You were right, Mom," she said, laughing through the phone. "Sometimes silence really is the loudest lesson." I smiled. "I'm proud of you, baby." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it without the ache. Now, in my quiet evenings, I talk to others through my little online channel, Beloved Grandma. I tell stories like this, hoping someone out there feels a little less alone, a little more understood. Maybe it's my way of giving back what time has carved into me. And if you're listening now, I want to leave you with this. Sometimes love isn't about fixing someone's world. Sometimes it's about standing beside them when theirs falls apart. So if someone once told you that you ruined something when all you tried to do was help, take a breath. Maybe you didn't ruin it. Maybe you just revealed the cracks that were already there. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to help someone out of love, only to be blamed for their pain? Did it make you stop helping, or did it teach you how to love more wisely next time? If this story touched you, my dears, don't forget to share it with someone who's been misunderstood too. Subscribe to Beloved Grandma for more stories from a heart that's been both broken and healed. And remember, even the deepest wounds can bloom into wisdom if you give them time. Now go on, call someone you love before silence does.